Welcome to Elevate Hotel Design, the podcast where we explore the latest trends, innovation, and key figures shaping the future of hospitality design industry. I'm your host, Lorraine Francis with Cadiz Collaboration, and today we have a fascinating conversation lined up with a leader in the design industry. In this episode, we're joined by Farshid Tafazzoli from Material Banks, a company that has revolutionized the way designers source materials. Material Bank is changing the game by making the material sourcing process faster, more efficient, and more sustainable. So I'm excited to introduce Farshid, co-founder and chief revenue officer of Material Banks. And Farshid, I first met you at Hotech. And it was actually only in 2000. I looked it up. I'm like, 2022? I feel like I've known you for 10 to 20 years, and it's really been a short moment. And I really was having you as the keynote speaker for Hotech and the Breakers. So it was such a fabulous place to meet you and really connecting over shared love and innovation and design. So I'm really just excited for you to share your journey and how Material Banks is expanding its global reach while we're staying committed to sustainability practices. So welcome here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah, no, exactly. So just tell us a little bit more about you and sharing your background and really what led you to join Material Banks. Even just looking it up, I was like, has only been around since 2019, and that's with COVID in there. It's 1 year. So it's been like this true expansion over the past 5 years.
Yeah. We just entered this year is our sixth year in business. And I'll just share a little quick background on myself. I'm an entrepreneur. I'll say a serial entrepreneur. My original background started in finance. So I worked in Wall Street for one of the large firms as a very young kid, I'll describe. And I went from there to starting one of the first electronic brokerage firms on Wall Street. So this is the early era, call it the 90s, if you will, just to give up my age a little bit. And that business went on to capture significant percentages of market share, became the sixth largest electronic brokerage worldwide, and ultimately a NASDAQ company. Through all of the ventures, and I continued to build other businesses that generally intersected Wall Street and software. That was my circle of competence, if you will. And the way that I got into this industry and the opportunity for Material Bank is one of my favorite stories. So I ended up through our kids who were in the first grade and maybe the third grade at that time. Our daughters ended up meeting Adam Sandow's daughters, and we were introduced as two families. And wow, I was just blown away by Adam as an entrepreneur. Adam, for those of you that may not know, is the chairman and CEO of Sandow Design Group, a very dominant architect and design media company that is global in nature. And Adam's background and my background were very similar, just young entrepreneurs who had built businesses in different segments. And we became family friends, and we broke the traditional rule that you're not supposed to work with friends. We've been working now together for, 13 years. I don't know, 14. Yeah, you lose count.
Yeah, you do.
It's a blessing, and he's just been an incredible entrepreneur. So he invited myself and Peter Fain. This was his idea to start Material Bank, just really the advantaged position that he had in this industry and to recognize what we call pain points inside of this ecosystem. It was very easy to see at that point that a lot of modernization and a lot of technology could be applied to this wonderful industry of ours.
Yeah. Yeah. So your role over there, so as chief revenue officer and co-founder. So what's your role and how has that evolved over the years?
Sure, when you start off, entrepreneurialism is just, it's a fancy word of saying that you each do everything,
Exactly.
do all of the heavy lift. It is an absolute, for those of you who've started businesses, it is, there's no glamour in it. It is a lot of hard work. And I like to refer to it as a suicide mission. So over 80% of all businesses fail. So if you were going to jump out of an airplane knowing that you have an 80% chance that your parachute's not going to open up, you're an entrepreneur. Uh, and the role went originally in just building the fundamentals of the business that is meeting the brands and the members who are the architects and designers. We're a marketplace. There's two sides to our marketplace, the architects and designers one side and the brands on the other. Started with building deep key relationships with each of those to establish this business that is now known as Material Bank.
Yeah. And I think because our audience is, there's not that many hospitality podcasts going around. So I feel like our audience is developers and designers and can just tell people like, what does Material Banks do? and how many people you have. Where I know we're going to Paris and you'd be living overseas right now. But what is that kind of creation of that company and what does it do and what problems does it solve?
Sure. It's a terrific question. So if you are an architect, a designer, a contractor, you are a professional in the trade. Odds are very high that you are either utilizing Material Bank or have just started to hear about Material Bank. So we started, 2018 was the first year that we were in beta. 2019, as you mentioned, Lorraine, is the first year of full operations, full fiscal year operations. Material Bank is the largest resource library for architects, designers, and trade pros. So imagine a warehouse that has millions of materials all under one roof. They're samples only. And these are now globally from over 1,200 brands. Now you're the architect, designer, trade pro. There's a website that's tied to this amazing warehouse. By the way, this warehouse, 150 plus robots, Amazon style operation. It is located in the Memphis area next door to the FedEx Super Hub. The reason for that is because that location, along with all of the technology that we've built, allows us to take orders up to midnight, Monday through Saturday, and every one of our packages are shipped overnight. Okay, so now you're the architect or designer. Lorraine, yourself, you register on the platform. We go through and we have to approve you. So we do a vetting process. We want to make sure you're a licensed individual, a professional. So if you're a part-time designer who flips real estate, you're going to get rejected. And as a professional, we go through an authentication process, which then gives you access to Material Bank. So first, we've authenticated you.
Yeah.
Next, we go through and before you can access those millions of materials from 1,200 plus worldwide amazing brands, you have to indicate the current project that you're working on. So you have to give the project name, the phase, the location, the description, key details. Now you go through, you're searching for paint. If you're Benjamin Moore fan, or Sherwin-Williams fan, any paint brand that you're going to find it there. Hardwood flooring, easy to find. Wall coverings, every brand will be there. Textiles, you'll find 10,000 plus textiles by searching. And the searches are very powerful. So you can search for a red textile that's got a floral pattern that's small, that has a particular double rub count, 50,000 or greater. You can go through a flammability certification in the exact county that you're located in. Click it. You'll go from tens of thousands down to the 12 that'll work perfectly for you. And you do that in seconds. Now, every category, interior, exterior, it doesn't matter if you're working on a hotel, just as this audience would be, an airport, a hospital, a residence, every project, education, interior, exterior, those brands and those products are going to be here. You click on sample. All of those items are placed in one box, regardless of the number of categories. So there's 300 plus categories that we have. They're placed in one box. You order up to midnight. You wake up the next morning. You have one package that is presentation quality so that you can actually present this package directly to your client. And
Yep, yep. No, I think that's what I love about it because when we do it, so I love about it because I'm on my phone and I'm just like sitting on the couch on a Thursday night. And I'm like, oh shit, I didn't get that done. So it's so nice to be like that, and it's there the next day is amazing.
8:30 in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah. We get some surprises. Sometimes we get some stuff where we're like, did you order that? Did I order that? I didn't really want that. So I think there are some surprises, but I think that ease and that efficiency of having an intern, a junior designer ordering from 10 different companies and making sure, did they get there? Did we call the rep? What do we do? Who's the rep? Who's the rep today? It has been, I don't want to say broken. It's been a different system. And I think this has made it really easy as a designer to get what I need. And I think that idea that you could send the duplicate package to, sometimes we have remote designers. Someone could be in Florida and we could be in LA and they're designing and they're sending us the exact thing they're picking. So it really helps us a little bit more, this remote world of having some great consultants on our team. So it's been great.
Thank you. Those are kind words. The part that I think is important for you, the trade professional, this is a free service.
Oh,
And
yeah,
so-
I forgot that.
Well, let's touch on just for a second, just the business model that's behind this. How is it free? There's always some touch of skepticism globally. We're now not just in all of North America, I mean, Europe, as you mentioned, we can go into details on that. We're also in Asia, but it is the brands who pay for this service. We're the largest generator of the highest quality leads. These are actual projects that are taking place. And so we are now in virtually every architect and design firm. The 200 largest firms in North America, we're in 100% of them. The Fortune 1000, the internal design teams, corporate America, there is not a company that doesn't utilize our platform. And so we're very proud of that dominant position, but it's really been by solving pain points that Adam very early identified. And that's the DNA of the company is real pain points, solving real issues for both sides of this ecosystem.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So let's talk about kind of expansion. So I think we saw each other at Salone in April, and you guys had a fabulous party. So it was so great to go to all these beautiful mansions in Milan's. That was fabulous. And also Michelle, so who was in Italy, and we met him at OTEC, and then you've taken him on. But I think also right after I left your party, and it was so great, there's so many people there. I'm like walking down the street to my next event. And I'm like, oh, there's a Material Bags van going past me. It's like, oh, that was a surprise. I think we just barely talked about expansion, and then I'm seeing these Material Bank vans like driving around Milan. So, and also the idea that even we schedule this podcast, you're like, hold on, I'm moving to Paris this month for the next 6 months. There's a lot of expansion going on. So maybe you can elaborate on that
Yeah.
for us.
Sure. So first, the opportunity set here in Europe is much larger than what we even thought it would be. There is a massive business and a massive industry that has very similar pain points as the US. Let's talk first GDP. The US GDP is about 1.5 times larger than all of Europe. And
Mhm.
in Europe, we serve 29 countries. While the GDP of the US is larger, there are more architects and designers in Europe, and there
Mhm.
are many more brands in Europe. And it's a highly fragmented market. So the market is worth more to build this market here than what we originally would have thought. We've identified that there are over 620,000 architects and designers that are based in Europe. And the number of brands that could potentially come, we're well ahead. So we have over 325 brands that have already signed up. And remember, these brands, they're notified when the architect or designer requests that sample with the key details. These brands are also notifying automatically all of the reps that are involved. So everyone is just very transparently included. But what's happened is that the architects and designers here, because they're more fragmented, it's a bigger challenge to be able to connect with them and to gain their access to Material Bank. And I've come out here for a very large growth initiative to kickstart that. And I'm very excited for it. And Paris is a beautiful city. I'm sitting here now in our office in the 8th arrondissement. Seine River is just a few hundred feet to my left. And I'm right in front of the Concord. So it's a beautiful place. But we are very serious and very committed to bringing our resources and really opening this up for all of Europe.
Yeah. So what are some of like the new challenges? But you're going over there more to actually really help set up that kind of growth because those are big numbers in terms of the amount of designers and projects and brands. That was actually really amazing to hear. So what are some of the challenges that you're dealing with or trying to work through with kind of being over there?
Yes, speed is the number one factor for us. So our number one principle at the company is speed matters.
Mhm.
And getting here, first of all, it's an incredible business model. And what we're focused on is doing this in the most efficient and the fastest way that we can. So part of that is going through and both digitally and physically connecting with this audience. So we have identified the 620,000 members that I described. We've identified 425,000 of them already. And we do that through just incredible data work, and we reach out and we connect with them digitally. We also connect with them physically. So we've set up now a process where over 120 events are going to take place here in Europe. And we're going to be here. We're committed to investing 1, 3, 5, 10 years. We are very committed to making the deep investments. We have the great fortune of having an incredible shareholder base. So we had the good fortune of raising over $325 million. We're wisely going through so that we position ourselves to help not just the community of architects and designers, but these incredible brands. And there are so many incredible brands. If I introduced you to half of these, you would just, I guarantee you, some of them would end up in your next hotel project that you'd
Yeah,
work on.
exactly. Exactly. It'll be over there ordering away. So besides, let's go beyond because you are way beyond ordering samples. So that's not really what your company is. And I think when we first met in Hotech, it was not, you really are a technology company. And even just talking about the Amazon model, and I just say, what's Jeff dropping off today? Because it has really made my life easier to do more stuff of what I want to do. So I feel like you are offering like new services and tools to really support designers. I know you have, I haven't really worked on the whole mood boards, but, like, where is that growth happen besides that's, ordering samples? It's not really that.
Yeah, we are very interested in solving the pain points of this entire ecosystem. First, let's talk about the ecosystem. This is a business and an industry which is very ripe for disruption. The model essentially runs the very same way it did. Here we are in 2024. In 1924, this is how the business ran. Many of these companies have been in business a very long time and they're quite antiquated. So we are bringing a number of key pieces. You mentioned the ability for our mood boards to be utilized. These are digital mood boards. You can do presentations with them. We've also brought on a number of innovations, such as an inbox that allows you to essentially message directly. So when you're working on a project, you no longer have to go and find who's my rep. We all know this information changes constantly. What's their phone number? What's their latest contact information? You just come to the material bank inbox and you send a message and it goes directly to their email. They reply directly back. It comes right back to you. And so what we're doing is we're going through and helping the search, sample, and specification process. By the way, our packages 100% go out carbon neutral. We didn't even touch on the sustainability aspect to it. We're allowing the community to just build stronger relationships. That is us with the architects and designers, but also you as the architects and designers out there to be able to work more effectively with your own direct clients. So whether it is a contractor that you're working with, whether it's the actual property owner, developers, and the like. And so there's a number of pieces. We're bringing constantly new innovations, showing you the latest materials, allowing you to educate yourself on these materials very quickly. We're bringing more and more categories such as plumbing, kitchen and bath, fixtures, and you're able to come to one location and identify what is now utilized by companies that I think would just probably be very revealing. So whether it's a Hyatt, IHG, Harrah's, Hilton, the Ritz, you name a project, odds are very high it is touching on Material Bank at this time. Our growth comes from our members, the number of projects that are taking place inside of our ecosystem, the categories, the brands, as well as the number of SKUs that we have. There's not another platform you could go to where you could find a 500,000 SKUs that you're looking for, and to be able to search, sample, and specify them with such ease and for free for the architect and designers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but let's also talk about, I think we even touched base on kind of some of your legacy vendors. So some of your legacy vendors have, in the past, they've had to have warehouse space for all their samples, and whether that's distributing them from the West Coast or East Coast. So you've also added that whole idea of they get rid of those leases and they're storing everything with you. How's that been working as a real savings for them of not having their own sampling and sending out samples every night and stuff like that? So that's really helped different vendors. So I feel like I'm curious how many people have had their samples, their own warehouses, and have shifted to say, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. You guys do it better. I'm doing it over here. Even if it costs me a dollar more, it's helping me because I don't have that overhead.
Lots. Let's talk about traditionally when you would start a materials business, your largest costs were you had to go and get a warehouse. You had to go and build this marketing piece that took place out there. Sampling is a very expensive line item. It's a requirement for this industry. You are not going to go and specify 100,000 square feet plus of a particular flooring without getting a physical sample. So it's a requirement, not just for you, but for you to also share with that property owner, the procurement firms, and those that you're working with. And so it's a requirement inside of this ecosystem. What we've done is we've now enabled the next generation of brands to be able to launch without needing that dedicated sampling warehouse and operation. And we've done it in a very cost effective way. So I have lots of examples to give, but in the US, for example, we have one of the major brands, one that has been around, I'm going to call it over 150 years,
Mhm.
that we handle 100% of their sampling for them. Now, there is not a sampling warehouse. It goes directly from the manufacturer, comes to us. And we are setting them up now in Europe as well, where they don't have a warehouse here and they've launched inside of Europe. And so it'll go from our warehouse, our hub in that Memphis area to our Paris hub, and it will operate their entire org for them. That's a massive cost reduction. And because our audience of architects and designers is so large, we're able to give them more marketing and branding and positioning inside of this ecosystem than any of the traditional media assets would be able to provide. That, along with generating what are true projects and connecting them with the architects and designers, their customers at the very end, has generated a very compelling value proposition for this industry.
Yep. Oh, that's great. And I also know is with one of your newer vendors that actually use material banks and just they have been more in residential. So that also exposure, because they've been in that Northeast region and now their exposure to the whole US and really getting those relationship with the big dogs and Gensler and other big firms, like they really are getting these calls from all over the United States. It's really interesting to see their growth from being on material banks, having that opportunity, getting in front of a lot of people that they wouldn't have had representation in the A&D market. So that's been interesting. I think we also talked earlier about just also the training on that. So how do you have a vendor who maybe has not been in hospitality be successful? And because all of a sudden all these calls come in and then how do they process it to make sure it's successful for them? It's a
Yeah.
big
So for first going into hospitality, if this brand has not been in hospitality, the commercial projects will be a minimum of 18 to 24 months until you get to that specification sort of phase. Something you, your audience are all very familiar with. Many times it's much, much longer than that. Everyone has gone through some of the cyclical downturns that have taken place. They would totally understand that. Now, when you go through and you have never historically had that hospitality exposure, we bring lots of resources. So we have an account manager that gets assigned to each of our brand partners. We go through and not work as vendors, we work together as partners so that we can position them for success. That includes doing rep trainings so that the reps know how to respond to these hospitality based leads that are being generated so that they understand the follow up best practices. But it's a digital and a physical presence. It's getting much harder to gain entrance inside of these firms. And so, what we've done is we have created a terrific platform that allows them to gain conversation and presence inside of firms they would not have otherwise had access to. And it's been a democratization, if you will. So we have lots of success stories where companies have gone into categories they never sold into. This week alone, I spoke to one company that you might find this very interesting. They build bars for the hospitality industry. That's what they did.
everything. Mhm.
And I always get a surprise. Tell me a new category or a new segment that you were able to sell to by joining Material Bank. You would be blown away. He told me that they are now placing their same bar products at nurses' stations. No, they're not offering martinis, but the leg raising aspects are being placed inside of all of the nurses' stations throughout hospitals throughout the country. So it's fascinating to see these things. And hospitality, a smaller version of hospitality is senior living that they may not have previously had exposure to, but now they're gaining entrance into senior living. All very dominant positions that we've been able to establish inside of this industry.
Yeah, no, it's actually fascinating. Like just hearing about the cross pollination, which is great. But I also know from myself as my experience ordering materials at the beginning, a little bit it was like I was in a shitstorm, but it was like all of a sudden I'd go to my email on Monday and I'd be like, oh my God, I got 25 emails. So I knew you've like changed that system because we love our reps. So we know they work so hard. So we totally value those relationships. but it was a lot to answer everybody. And
Yep.
now it's much more, elegant for us as designers. And I'll just get a ping on, hey, you ordered a tile 6 months ago for a project. That project might be on hold right now, but it's a lot easier of a communication. And I think also what I love about your company is I get my little M&M pack every once in a while with with your material bags. And I think we talked about that last time you were going to get rid of them. And I'm like, no, I need
No, the M&Ms here are they're sacrosanct. They basically it's like the Costco hot dog. It'll always be here. It's never going with. Everyone can.
so limited. I only have like 20. So it's like limited 20 pack that's on my desk if I need an emergency at 3 o'clock in the
Yes,
afternoon.
that again is the brilliance of Adam Sandow, who came up with the yellow M&Ms branded with our logos on them, and they're loved. I can tell you internationally, so they're as loved in the U.S., Europe, and elsewhere.
I know, but I think we talked about as the chief revenue officer, you were like questioning them. So I was like, no, don't get rid of them. So okay, it's also
Yeah, I'll rest assured. You must have caught me at a weak moment. I can't get rid of them. Don't even sweat the river.
well, no, no, good, good. So what else is exciting, like expansion for designers? So I think I haven't really used the mood board. So I'm just trying to think like, how's that come into new things that you're implementing to make things easier? And how are people reacting to that? Or anything new on the horizon that you see you're going to change to help designers and architects on your platform?
Yeah, look, one of the things you have to think about is that we're in a very data advantaged position. And so this is anonymized data sets. But
Mhm.
if I said to you, because we see every single hospitality project, we see every airport, we see every residential project that you can imagine, just 2.5 million plus leads that are essentially generated. It is broad, it is deep inside of each ecosystem. You, as a hospitality designer, and you're at the forefront of your industry, you put a tremendous amount of effort. You're a thought leader inside of this ecosystem. But if I turned to you and said, here are the 10 most requested innovative materials inside of the hospitality segment for the entrance, for a ballroom, you would absolutely take a look and say, wow, what are those 10 products that are there? And if I introduced to you and said, here are the 10 brands that are the up and comers inside of this ecosystem, and why we can sit there and see that purview is because we see the data sets in terms of what is being requested. So we see trends that may start from Europe and work their way residentially into the US. And we'll see them work from the West Coast and work their way throughout the rest of the ecosystem. So it's always fascinating to us when we see somebody pick a color of the year or make a prediction. We really do it based off of the data sets that we have. And the data sets that we have, there is no argument with. They're by far and away the most relevant data sets because we see them at every phase. So we see a concept design phase all the way through to the specification and then the reselection. So we know what is going through and being reselected that may not have made it and seeing what is relevant and not relevant for every single spliced segment of this ecosystem.
Yeah. No, it's like a tremendous amount of data. So how do you sell that information at all, or is it always used for internal trending reports, or even that's a lot of data that no one gets? So it's
Yeah.
kind of
So we do not sell data. One of the other parts that you should know, we are in a very trusted position and we recognize that.
yeah.
It's very important for us to maintain the confidentiality of all of this information and all of this data set. Now we have our own data scientists where we look to identify and see in an anonymized way. So for example, if there is a yellow and white striped textile and as a category in the entire industry, it is starting to gain traction. We will work with the brands so that they understand that they need more yellow and white striped textiles.
Right.
And what that does is it allows more choice and selection for you as the designer who's working on these particular projects and allows you more accessibility into these product lines. That is a very simple example where we're sharing anonymized data sets when they're starting to become very relevant. And by the way, that also saves not just time and energy and cost for the architects and designers, but it is also more important because the brands don't have that waste of building inventory in products that may not be selling and may not be relevant for them at that particular moment.
Yeah. No, exactly. Going to switch to some not pro self promotion. I do design a small carpet area rug line out of Rhode Island. So when I just joined, I don't know if Adam Kubrick, where he has his vendor boot camp. So now I've signed up for the vendor boot camp. And just as a younger startup company of how do I get in hospitality and how do I sample? I'd be really scared to like put myself on material myself to even make this many samples. And what would that be like for one carpet for $3,000? Is that going to be worth it? So how do you work with, forget PD's Explore carpet line, but just try to
Yeah.
figure out like, how would I work with you? And also with Vendor Bootcamp, they have teamed up with Hospitality Design Magazine, and it'll be interesting to see this one in the Viceroy in December that I'll be attending. I'm going through the questionnaire and everything like that. But just how does a new vendor, how does a new material come to you to get support? Is there scholarship, or do you support smaller companies with more interesting products rather than the big dogs?
Yes, so it's a terrific question. And so we have small brands, medium brands, and very large, what we refer to as enterprise sized brands that are inside of this ecosystem. What's important to recognize is that the way that we do it is when you come on board, and you gave the example, you sell each of your rugs for roughly $3,000. And the reason we've been able to be so successful is because we have truly added value to both the architects and designers. Free service radically saves time instead of you having to go through, find the energy, contact 10 reps, fill out 10 forms, send out 10 emails to you come and do it in minutes. You search sample and you've got your samples all in one box, sustainably delivered the very next day. So let me explain on the other side of the brands. So when a brand partner joins us, if you're, and I'll give you an actual example, we charge $39 for a lead. And that lead is when an architect or designer came, identified your rug, learned all of the key aspects that they wanted to learn. If they had a flammability cert, colors, patterns, styles, key details that they had, and they thought it could work well for the hotel project that they're working on. When they click sample and they've provided the project name, phase, location, description, and we have placed it in the box and delivered it and put it on the desktop of that architect and designer, we charge you, the brand, $39 for that lead. So let's take an example that you spend $10,000 on leads with us. Now, $10,000 at $39 per lead is 256 leads that you would have received. And that 256 leads, if you had less than 2% success, so that means you lost 251 of them. You only won five. Those five projects at $3,000 each, you would have earned back $15,000 on your $10,000 investment. And that's at a 2% success rate. If you start to get, you would fire your sales team, by the way, as a company, if they had 2% success. But if you had 20% success, for example, that $10,000 investment would be $150,000 plus in revenues that you would
Mhm.
generate. So it
Yeah.
takes very little for you to succeed. Most would consider 2% at that bottom end a failure, and it still works economically. So our leads are priced so that this is an absolute win-win for them, for the brands that have joined. And it's why we continue to have many of our brand partners who are on the platform now. Many of them are here 6 years plus
Mhm.
from day one. And we have a very high retention rate of the brands. And for many of them, you would be shocked, but we've become 70, 80, 90. There are even some that were 100% of their total spend for obtaining leads, meaning gaining business inside of this ecosystem. So we know the economics work because we also go back to the architects and designers 18, 24 months later, and we asked them that project you were working on, you had three different rugs you chose from three different companies. Who won the project? And so we verify those projects in that sense.
Yeah, no, that's cool. But a vendor could also put a cap on it. So if I just wanted to spend $10,000, like I cap that out at 10,000 and then it's pulled off, correct?
So we don't put a cap, but
Okay.
what we do with you is we have a data scientist team who actually will give you a determination as to how many leads you should expect to receive.
Okay. Cool.
And for the very small companies, if you, for example, don't have reps on the West Coast, you can segregate a territory and say, this is the territory that I'd like to be able to do this. So you can control your growth and your risk, as well as have a very good, accurate prediction in terms of what your monthly invoices are going to look like from this perspective. And that's, again, another advantage of the data sets that we build. So
Yeah.
very
Cool.
effective for small brands, for medium-sized brand, and these large enterprise type of account. I have some amazing success stories, by the way, in this category. We have a company I spoke to recently. They had never sold, and they had rugs. They had never sold a rug to a single hotel. And on Material Bank, they only sold residential, and they came onto Material Bank, and they ended up getting a 320 room hotel that they placed their rugs into. They had a single order that was more than $2 million in a project. So I think that one order paid for, we calculated something like 8 years worth of Material Bank leads.
Okay, we'll talk about that later for me. That's good.
Probably every.
Yeah, yeah. So let's go. So what's near and dear to me is always sustainability. So, and I think it's always like the hospitality industry is a little slower embracing it completely. But I know your company has joined the Climate Pledge and you ship your packages 100% carbon neutral. So let's just talk about sustainability and kind of your commitment and where do you see that going in the future? Because it's packaging. You know, I have a lot of black boxes in my office, but I love them because we use them for presentation boxes. Like, I don't think they will know it. Like, when you get that box, it's really exciting. It's a great size, and it's actually a great way to store things for our different projects.
Yeah. So what's really fascinating is we actually uh, committed to being net zero before we started the business. And this was a very important piece. The climate pledge and being 100% carbon neutral are just parts of the story. We've purchased carbon credit offsets that are over 5,000 metric tons of carbon emissions. We're taking what is thousands of cars off of the road for entire years. Our packaging is very unique because if you think about the example that we gave, where you're ordering from 10 different brands, you historically were receiving 10 boxes coming from 10 warehouses, whether they were trucks, airplanes, those 10 packages were all arriving at different times. We now aggregate that where it goes into one single box and it's carbon neutral. And so you've saved 9 packages inside of that one example. So now we've saved about 5.2 million packages from being sent. And these things matter. They're very important for not just this ecosystem, but they really do set the right standard for the next generation. And by the way, just one little side note, when we talk about the next generation, we are now in 98% of all CETA universities. So we are educating, training all of the next generation of design professionals. And so it's one of the coolest things, Lorraine. You get to see them go from their first year, second year, they graduate. You see them go from a .edu email address to working at a small firm. Then they go to a larger firm. You literally see the evolution of it. And so we, we wake up every morning with one thought in mind, and that is to give the brands that are on our platform a massive advantage over the brands that are not on the platform, and to make and improve the lives of each and every architect and designer who utilizes the platform. And we think that as long as we focus in that capacity, we'll be able to continue and have this headway of success.
Yeah. No, good. And then also with sustainability, even for selections, like how are you helping people get the right information? So I'm trying to like, I haven't really ordered lately on your site, but if I'm choosing between this tile, do you have a designation? How are you metricing that? How are you checking with the manufacturer to encourage more sustainable choices for designers?
Of course. So one of the things that we've done is that when we bring all of your materials as a brand manufacturer, as one of our brand partners onto the platform, one of the things that we've done is we have gone through the painstaking task of identifying every one of the factors for filters. And so these types of filters that you'll imagine, they're not just color, pattern, application, content, if you will, but they're also very significantly going to touch on sustainability factors. So if there is a particular sustainability rating that you're looking for, we're going to have that on the platform. If you want something in simplicity to be red list free, you just click on the filtering so that it's red list free. If you are interested in the mindful materials filtering, you just click and you will have that inside of your ecosystem so that it is just those products. And every single filter that exists in sustainability has been applied to each and every SKU. So this requires a lot of work. This is our data team. This is material librarians, material scientists on our part. Many times when we pull the data from our brands, we actually enhance it and have more knowledge about the material than even the manufacturer might have had.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's amazing. So it's actually, I haven't really done all the toggles. So I have to go look back into it. But I think that's one of those, that's one of the tools that a designer can use. So there any other like tools that people are using with your kind of with your knowledge and your database and kind of that can help designers or our audience hear advice?
Yeah, a lot of the tools that are really being utilized touch on again that the framework of pain points inside of this ecosystem. So one of the pain points that we learned from your community as an example is the work that you have to do to put everything into a specification software.
Yes.
I've never seen a more painful process in my life, Lorraine. What
Mhm.
is I'm not from the industry. Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Plumbing's even worse. So you have to figure out like what's the P trap, what's all this, are you decorative and being coated or so.
You bring up plumbing. So we have solved this, and I'm going to tell you how we've done it. So we're agnostic to which specification software you use,
Yeah.
and that the boards that we spoke about. Once you've gone through and you've selected all of your materials, they've landed automatically. You don't have to do anything. They've landed in your boards. So now you can go inside of your boards and you can see all of the materials that you've selected. And all you do is export every single attribute of these products to your specification of choice. It's agnostic. You just import them directly from our file into your specification software. And so that is saving weeks worth of work for many of the specification team members. Specification, I learned specification is so bad that one of the things I noticed is you guys literally bring in somebody who's that's their job is they have to do the specification software work. So we're expanding inside of the ecosystem by just solving these types of pain points. There are many more to come. We have a software roadmap that we've had the great pleasure of having a new CEO that joined us this year. And just a quick bit of background, it's Sebastian Gunningham. Sebastian is really a technologist, and he went from this is not a storybook career. This is almost a fantasy career. He went from Stanford, came out of Stanford and got a job with Oracle on their executive team working for Larry Ellison, then was hired by none other than Steve Jobs to work at Apple for their executive team. And then if this is where it becomes fantasy, then he was hired by Jeff Bezos to work on Amazon's what's called their S team. That's their executive team, and was there through the critical years. So we've had the great honor of having an amazing leader who's come in and really positioned us for significant growth and modernization, really the pace that we're going in updating the technologies that are in this ecosystem has never been this fast. We're going faster each and every single day. And rumor has it, I'm going to describe it as rumor. Rumor has it that somewhere this next month, we're also going to be releasing a new marketplace that is really for consumers. So this is the first place I've said it.
Mhm.
Can't
You
take it
heard it
back.
here. No one elevate. What's that?
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the rumor, at
Everyone.
least. Lots of additional pieces that are coming. Stay tuned. There's a lot of excitement here, and we're really just getting started, is the way I'd describe it.
No, so that leads us to like reflections and future outlooks. That 3 to 5 years ahead sounds like it's something off the press and soon. But even just for reflecting on how you've built the business, like what other things have you been adjusting and how do you see that moving forward? Like the top 5 goals of what you guys are looking at.
Yeah, really what we're doing is we think that this industry, design, is one of the largest industries that has the number of pain points that technology has not yet modernized. And so I find it almost barbaric that there is not price transparency and that whether you call as a well-known hospitality designer, that you get a different price than somebody else that calls the very same brand to make a purchase 30 minutes later. And so the number of pain points and the way the process works, there is a lot of room left for improvement, and we plan to be leaders at the forefront of innovation to remove those pain points for all sides of this ecosystem.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, so to me, it's always in plumbing and it's always also in lighting because lighting, if you have to specify, it's from a group. So if you're using Prudential or whoever you're using, it's you don't get the lighting numbers. I just want to know this fixture costs $1,000, whatever it is. And plumbing, it's also a little bit of a mystery meat to chase sometimes. So we were working with Al in Toronto, and he really has helped us with our plumbing specs and really to get more transparency. And that's a little bit so we can make a better choice for the better value for a guest experience and not making sure we're picking the right thing, but it has the right price that we need. Yeah.
Yeah, and so a lot of by the way, both of those categories are relatively new categories on Material Bank. And so you'll find lots of lighting brands, and the plumbing brands are all here. We recently had Kohler join us earlier this year. So those shifts that are taking place, we've seen these pain points as well with you. Yes, plumbing requires a completely different degree, if you will, to understand what half of the elbows and turns and valves and devices are required. But all of those pain points are now solved on Material Bank. I would encourage everybody to utilize it to make their days a little bit easier.
Yeah, no, exactly. So recently I just got back from New York. So I went to Briso does a great collaboration with Jason Wu before he was actually just grew his business and everything. So are you guys doing any other kind of collaboration? Because I know even Salone, you teamed up with Elle magazine. So are there other things happening on more the collaboration side, even fashion side, or just being a little bit more innovative?
Yeah, so we just had a number of meetings that are setting what is for the roadmap for 2025. And what I'll say is stay tuned. There's a number of exciting pieces that are coming. Here in Europe, our plan is a little bit different than in the US. So there's more of the types of collaborations that you're describing that'll take place here in Europe. We'll have lots of exciting pieces. In the US, it's a bit different. The US side of the market is more established. We've been there a longer period of time. And the way that it's working is that we start with releasing what are technology based innovations on the American side, and then we bring them to Europe roughly 60 days later. But one of the things that are taking place, I'll share with you what we've learned. You might find this interesting. So, our brand partners find that when they do collaborations with a very well known designer, that other designers do not have the comfort of turning to their client and saying, I've chosen this other brand, this other designer's collections for you. That touches more on the residential type of designers.
Yeah.
So, where we're seeing the data parse out is we're seeing the collaborations more effectively on the commercial side than we
Mhm.
are on the residential side. It's creating these awkward moments where a designer basically is saying, you didn't assemble anything, or the client is saying, you didn't assemble anything. You just picked this designer's collection, if you will, for me. And that is not the way that it's viewed on the commercial side of it. It's viewed in a far different light. So I thought you might find that interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, because I used to be a little bit awkward years ago if I picked a Kelly Wearstler beautiful wall covering, and I'm like, no, it's beautiful. I'm going to have it in our project, and it's a beautiful wall covering for a particular area. So it feels like less. I don't know if us as design firms were like confident in our design, don't have to worry about that or care about that. We just want to go for the quality of what we want, and like other great designers out there that have make beautiful products.
Yeah, that awkwardness is apparently even greater on the residential side.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I know with HGTV, it seems like there's too much influencers going out there right now.
Very much so.
But yeah. So no, just for any, I think wrapping this up, is there any like closing trends you want to share or any kind of like innovations that you're working on that you want to share with our audience?
Gosh, the one thing I would say to this audience is there is a lot of innovation underneath the hood that is
Mhm.
taking place. I think that this industry, for the most part, has been very stagnant,
Mhm.
and there has not been to date somebody who has been able to effectively move the entire industry, meaning collectively, the majority, the large majority of the architect and design community. And we hear the voices and are very in tune. The collective businesses that Adam has built and the knowledge that he has brought to this company has really given us a terrific pulse for what those changes should look like. And we're very confident that the community will be happy with these changes. They're really just around a basic premise that in our personal lives, we've had all of this massive shift and benefits that technology has brought. And prior to Material Bank, our personal lives were in 2024, but our business life in the architect and design segment was like in the 1950s. Uh, and so I would say that we are just reaching that point where when we do come out with new features, functions, tools, capabilities, they are being adopted far faster than they've ever been. And so we hear each and every one of you. Your voices really do resonate. And to stay tuned, it's a very exciting time. I'm enjoying each and every single day. There are roughly 300 of us at the company, all working incredibly hard towards improving your lives.
Oh, no, that's awesome. Awesome. So first, thank you so much for being my friend and just for also sharing your insights and your experience with us today. It's really been a pleasure hearing about growth. And I'm so excited that you're in Paris. I feel like the Eiffel Tower should be behind you and your head.
Well,
But
it's
it's really
it's
nice.
right here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I knew it was somewhere in the view. That beautiful office I'm sure you have. Today's discussion has really highlighted how Material Banks is transforming the design industry and making it easier, faster, and more sustainable for designers to source the materials they need. And for our listeners, just be sure to tune into our next episode of Elevate Hotel Design, where we'll continue to explore the future of hotel design with more industry experts like Farshid. And don't forget to subscribe and stay updated on all the trends and innovations. So thanks again. Appreciate you being on our show.
Thank you so much. This was absolutely amazing, Lorraine. I really genuinely appreciate everything and look forward to more discussions on this amazing industry of ours.